stand in solidarity. Cassius, let's take a few moments now to stand. Thank you. Please take a seat. If you've got any capacity, a really simple way to stand with Cassius and his family is to support their GoFundMe page. GoFundMe.com/justice for Cassius. They're raising money to pay for the funeral costs, pay for the legal costs for the pursuit of justice, but also to set up initiatives that will serve the young people of their local community. Very practical and tangible thing that we can do from a distance. All right, let's get to the welcome. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to our speakers and our guests. Thank you to our panelists who bravely put up their hands to be grilled. I want to acknowledge that some who we were hoping to be here couldn't be here tonight, but that's okay. Want to say thank you to the Disability Resource Centre, who weren't able to be represented here tonight, but their work is crucial in seeing equitable access for all. I want to acknowledge that we've got a great representation from Brimbank City Council here. Madam Mayor, as well as the councillors, great to have you all with us. Many of you who are running at this next election. Great to have you here with us. Great to also have representation from many parties who are hoping to run, hoping to be elected to represent our people locally. From the Greens, we've got Bernadette, Thomas from the Socialists, Liz Walsh from the Animal Justice Party, Meg Watkins. Unfortunately, no representation from the ALP, although I'm sure they will be running too. And many represented here running for the upper and lower houses. General housekeeping stuff, please be respectful to one another. Please don't take this as an opportunity to go on a rant about something that you're really passionate about. Let's stay on topic if we can. Please keep, we're going to have a time for Q&A after the presentations. And so once again, please keep those questions respectful and please keep them to less than 30 seconds. A question should be less than 30 seconds. And thank you to the volunteers who have given up their time. Thank you for Cafe Sunshine and Salma Tea for feeding us so well. Hopefully you will know your way around the building. The bathrooms are just out the door, straight in front of you. Hard to miss. Now, we're going to open up with a short video. Generously funded by the PTUA and their generous members, just to give a bit of context around this work. Hopefully it will be played soon. Thanks, John. Here we go.
A better bus network means more freedom, more safety, less stress and better health for everybody.
There are many new development happening in western area where there are no buses.
Living in Werribee, there's very limited buses near my area, and because there's no buses, I have to go to my local library and wait there for a really long time until 6 o'clock, and so my parents can pick me up from the library.
Still, we are suffering this transport system. If it is fixed, then I think we will be happy.
from a parent and I work as a nurse. So my understanding would be for general people would be like just build, do the funding probably and increase the frequency and the number of buses probably, and maybe find out new routes because there are newer areas which needs commuting as well. If we have buses, we are taking off more cars from the roads.
An investment in public transport is an investment in a better economy and a better mobility system for everyone in our state.
We all know the Western community, they are mostly first home buyer, struggling community for work-life balance, and this community deserve better buses first in Victoria.
Government should take some initiative to fix the problem in the west side.
We're calling on the government to actually do something and actually provide a proper, prompt bus service that actually meets the needs of residents and is actually electric powered.
The West deserves the best.
West deserve the best.
The West deserves the best.
The West deserves the best.
Now I'm going to invite the Mayor of Brimbank City Council, Jasmine Nguyen. Let's open this up with a few words. Thanks, Jasmine.
Hi everyone, so happy to be here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Councillor Jasmine Nguyen, and I'm the Mayor of Brimbank City Council. And I too want to pay respects to the traditional custodians of the land which we live on. In Brimbank, we have the Wurundjeri and Burnarong peoples, and always will be Aboriginal land. And look, as John mentioned here today, there are still grievances and racism that's happening in our country. And it's very important that we keep this in mind. Like when we acknowledge, it's not just acknowledging, it's realizing there's still so many issues that we need to work on in Australia today. I'm happy. I'll speak louder. Let me know if you can't hear me. Yeah. I'm so proud to be here with you today. Like Brimbank City Council is happy to support this campaign for better buses. Like we're here at the venue. And John, I think you did a fantastic job acknowledging all the people that are here. I think it's fantastic to see, Councillor Lancashire, Councillor Paul, and Councillor Tachos and Councillor Lou at the back there, and also even council staff too, my ilk, as well as so much representation from different political parties, the Greens, the Socialists, Liberals, and yes. Did I miss anybody else? Animal Justice Party. Seriously, this is fantastic. It's clear here that needing better buses is an issue that should be bipartisan or any partisan, right? Across all the political parties. And then also we have. Can I just say a big special thank you to Friends of the Earth for organising this campaign. As you all greeted here by Rachel here today, and also want to recognise Elise Cunningham as well, you may be in touch with her, as well as the Disability Resources Centre, Ken Lee Community Advocates, right here, I'm still in the video crowd, very famous, and Greater Sunshine Community Alliance, as well as many members of the community who are just passionate and care about our transport accessibility issues in Brimbank. And I just want to let you know that I think growing up in Brimbank, taking the buses was not a reliable thing for me to do at school. Like I remember my dad would be like, oh, why do I have to drive you? I'm like, there's only one bus route to my school. And the same thing happened to me. Like I was at a Brimbank Youth Council meeting, and one of the youth councillors said to me, oh, Jasmine, we only have one bus at Copywood College, and it doesn't align with our school time. So by the time we finish school, the bus is already gone, and most of the schools waiting at the bus stop. And then when they go on the bus, they're all crammed, or some people can't even get on the bus. They have to wait till 4:30. Not good enough. Only one bus route, and that's just one school. Yeah. And, you know, I think it's great to hear, you know, we have Dr. John Stone here today. He's one of the co-researchers of the University of Melbourne. His paper indicated that we actually need to reform our metro bus system. All right, and we need to be smart about how we have our capital investments in the city. Like we're trying to like build the growing, moving west, that is Melbourne's west, which is the fastest growing region in Australia. Like, where is the bus infrastructure? Like, we know if we have a better bus network, we're gonna have cleaner air, more transport accessible. I just had a trip to South Korea. Oh my gosh, it was affordable, it was frequent, it was reliable. Everybody took the bus there. There were less cars on the road. Fantastic. We have a long way to go. Right. And I'm really keen to hear more from your insights today. But we know that if we reform the bus network, if we connect with our natural resources, we have a creek, right? We can be smart about this. And I'm going to keep it short there, but look, this is an issue that's not going to go away anytime soon. And everyone in the room here today is a catalyst for change. And let's all hop on board this bus to move more buses in Brimbank. Not just Brimbank, but also Melbourne's West as well. So very happy to be here. And yeah, I hope this campaign gains momentum. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jasmine. So now we're going to invite up some speakers, and each of them are going to have about 10 minutes each to share. I'll be the official timekeeper, so I'll give you a heads up when you've got a minute to go and gently usher them away from the front. Get to the mark, okay? So our first speaker will be Laura Aston, who is a Sunshine West resident, member of the Sustainable Cities Collective and advocate for better buses, and is also a member of the Greater Sunshine Community Alliance. So Laura, over to you.
You may know me from the video with the cute baby who's at home tonight, because this is where I wanted to be tonight, and it's really exciting to see all the faces in the room. Actually, I would love to meet everybody and know what brought you here, because it's not often that we get a critical mass of people together to talk about buses, so yay. But by the same token, I sense that we're all on a similar wavelength here, and I was going to come and talk to you, and I will talk to you about the stories I've heard as a Sustainable Cities Collective member, talking to people in the community about their experience of buses. But I also want to put it out to everyone to come and chat to me, chat to each other about how we take the next step to actually make sure we get these bus services, because I think we all agree, and Mannion phrased it so well, that this just has so much to bring to Brimbank to the west. So how do we make sure that we don't walk away after tonight, or that we don't get through the election and we don't see the funding that we need to make this amazing stuff happen? So let's talk. But anyway, back to my remit. As I was introduced, I am a local resident. I just so happen to be a transport planner too, so it makes things a bit complicated, because I don't know if I'm wearing my transport planner hat or my mum Sunshine West local hat. I'm speaking here as a resident, but with a bit of insight from my job, my research that I do, and I can't help but bring that lens to the way that I see transport in Brimbank. So that said, my life got turned on its head when I did have a baby, and I started to use the bus more, and that's what got me involved in advocacy. I was making different trips, I was seeing different people, I had a pram, and I was using the local destinations more. So I started talking with others, and I heard stories about children who were penalised because they were late for school because their bus didn't turn up. It didn't count that the bus didn't turn up. That wasn't an excuse. I've talked to women who have been abused on transport and public transport and won't go back. I've talked to people with disabilities who find the journey too jarring and therefore can't use the bus. I've heard stories of people who can't take up a job because they can't get to a job. It's in a way not dignified that they must rely on other people to get to their workplace, even if they are provided with some form of transport that is called up, you know, for them by, for example, speaking with people. I've heard they might get a taxi book for them, but it doesn't let them do the other errand and the other errand. And I'm so glad that we're going to hear today from Danny about a solution for community transport that plugs the gaps between our regular running bus services. But aside from that, those experiences that might resonate with some in the room, I also want to touch on an opportunity that we have, and that is to make to see Sunshine Station transformed into a real hub that sees tens of thousands more people pass through Sunshine and beyond into the west. So I can't help it, I'm from Sunshine, and I know from other people from different parts of Brimbank. So hopefully you'll excuse me, you know, just focusing on that for just a moment, because on Sunday we did see the release of the Sunshine Station master plan from the state government. And what a vision for an interface between all different kinds of transport into our city, and the values that it puts front and centre are people, the environment, the amenity of our station area, the pedestrian realm, and the use of active and public transport modes. That's the vision. The manifestation of that, well, I think it will be seen if it delivers the vision. And I just want to encourage everyone here to keep talking and make sure that we get to have a say in how the master plan takes shape, so that it can deliver that vision. Because we know that when more and more people pass through Sunshine, they're not all going to be able to make that trip by car. There are other ways that people have to be able to get into Sunshine so that it can stay vibrant. People need to be able to make the trip, who can make the trip on foot, by bike, by public transport. So obviously that master plan determines how the station area acts as a gateway to allow that interface. And so just a few points, I guess. There's a bus interchange there. Now we're here talking about the need for more bus service. Potentially the proposed bus interchange will cater to the existing number of buses. If there are more bus movements, we don't know if that will be accommodated. Will that be accommodated by bus loop? Dr. John Stone is going to talk to us about the concept of having fast, frequent, direct, consolidated services. Maybe they won't need as many bays if there are consolidated routes in the short term, but in the long term, we're going to see so many more people using buses that inevitably we need plenty of space for the bus network. Secondarily to that, the bus interchange may move further away from the Sunshine Town Centre. What does that mean for people who want to get into Sunshine, for it acting as a gateway to the Sunshine Town Centre? So those are just a few points that I think are yet to be worked out. And I hope that we, the people of Brimbank, will get to have a voice in working through those details on the design of the master plan. I guess I don't want to deviate too much from the remit of buses, so might leave it there, but I encourage everyone to have a look at the master plan, work through it in your own time, and let's just hope that we can help show the rest of the community how the master plan will achieve a vision without compromising people's ability to get to the train station or to get to Sunshine. Because I know there are a lot of people who are actually scared that if they rely on their cars, they might not actually be catered for. And I'd hate for that to be the thing that lets down this great vision for a Sunshine that can cater to tens of thousands more people. So have a look and let's hope that we can get the right support. That's about all that I wanted to share with you today, and I hope that we can have good and thorough discussion after this. Thanks very much.
That was lovely. Thanks, Laura. I'm going to invite up Graeme Blore, who is a Canley resident, who's also a community advocate with a background in working with young people and refugees. He's also the convener of a group of local residents who are campaigning to get better community services and better outcomes for their community. So over to you, Graeme.
Okay. Thanks, John, and thanks everyone for coming. Hope you can all hear me. Dan, can you hear me right down there? Beautiful. All right. Okay, I'm a little bit hard of hearing, so I'll probably talk louder than normal anyway. So I'm going to talk about this a bit from one suburb's perspective, but I think it's actually indicative of what's going on across the West. I've actually worked for the last 17 years in setting up and coordinating support for refugee and new arrivals right throughout Victoria. I saw what worked well and I saw what worked really badly. And I saw out in the West, estates that are out in the middle of nowhere and that are literally ghost towns after 7 p.m. at night, particularly on the weekend. And I thought, this is disgraceful. I grew up in the leafy East where we got fantastic services. And I thought, this is just so unjust. Why can't we get the same services? We're not asking for gold mines or anything like that, but we are asking for a fair go. We are asking our government to step up and to start looking at funding for the West and actually providing a meaningful service instead of empty words and vague promises, which is exactly what we've got, as you're going to hear in a minute. Okay, Development Victoria, which is an agency of state government, is going to actually develop the last 41 hectares in Camlee. The reason I'm saying that is because they actually commissioned a survey. It's an online survey during the COVID era and 31 detailed questions of Camlee residents about what they wanted to see in the new estate. So these are the public findings, and this is actually the one that's relevant. Respondents said that there were substantial gaps in the local public transport system, including infrequent bus services, confusion about bus train connections, and the inability to access a train station on foot. All right, this is actually the report from Development Victoria. This is not what the community is made of. This is actually their own findings as an agency of state government. And then in 2021, there are a number of papers that were actually written, including this one, which is called A Summary of Consultations. It's actually available on the Development Victoria website, Camlee Planning Scheme Amendment. Okay, so the Department of Transport actually commented that there was discussion focusing on the state of public transport planning for the Camlee area, in particular, the lack of bus routes bisecting the Camlee area was raised. The Department of Transport reiterated that there are currently no bus routes through Camlee along Camlee Drive, which is the main north-south route through Camlee, which is a 1.4 kilometre distance between existing bus services on Furlong Road and on Ballarat Road. So the Transport indicated the need to investigate a new or improved service to actually achieve better public transport service for the proposed estate. Okay, that's all right, I don't need that one. And the broader suburbs. Okay, that was in June 2021. Okay, and we actually wrote to the Department of Transport, a person from a team leader from Sunshine who said that, quote, the Department of Transport, this is in February this year, okay? We currently do not have a formal referral of a development application for this site, although I understand that Development Victoria is working on it, including for public transport accessibility for the additional 840 lots. So what we actually did in Camlee, which is indicative of the region and indicative of the complications and the issue at hand in regard to the lack of public transport, we followed up with meetings with our local Labor MPs, and out of that, on those meetings on the 15th of March, we got a commitment that they would actually push the Department of Transport, and I've got this here, I'm happy to release it, to conduct an assessment survey of bus route needs and usage in the Camlee area, i.e. where's the public transport connectivity for all the major hubs, including hospital, Brimbank and Camlee shopping centres, VU, etc. Okay, and we were also told that they have, and this is in March, that Natalie has flagged with the Minister's Office the request to review the bus services for Camlee and St Albans. All right. And then we actually got a response from the Department of Transport as well. They actually indicated on the 31st of May that they would actually, and I'm sorry, just bear with me a second, they would actually be looking at the Camlee development and the rationale for reviewing the operation of the surrounding bus network. They're unable to provide timing for such a review. Okay. Then we again spoke to our local MPs about this. There's still no response from them. No updates. September, we also wrote to them again. And this was after the ABC news story, which featured actually Dr. John Stone's finding, the brilliant output, the brilliant work, the brilliant research project regarding what can be done to actually resolve this problem and get a decent 21st century bus network for the West. Brilliant stuff. So I actually provided the link, which was, I thought was very nice of him. And I said, in light of the abysmal bus services for the West, the practical and comprehensive measures suggested are, in our opinion, more than worthwhile, given the relatively low cost involved and the massive potential benefits. We asked for the views of our MPs. They replied 4 days later. No response in regard to that, despite a very detailed email and other things, which was actually, in reality, full of vagaries. Look, we've got a major issue out here. We've got an ageing population out here as well in the West, all right, who are going to have great difficulty, particularly with accessing bus services, all right, as they age. We need bus services that actually cater for the needs of the whole community. We need access to employment. If we have a ludicrous situation now where if you want to, if you're an employer, if your job is with an employer out in the Melbourne airport precinct, you're going to go into North Melbourne and catch a train out to Broadie. Good luck with that. And then catch a bus. No disrespect to Broadmeadows, lovely suburb. But the reality is it's madness. You've got to go here to go there. All right. So one of the major employers in the West. So there's no bus route that goes from Sunshine direct to the airport, a major employer. And that's one aspect alone. Universities, schools, we've heard about kids who are late to school, who are getting in trouble because the bus doesn't even stop for them. And I've heard countless examples of that. And I think probably all of you, who are residents here have experienced that for yourselves. We have an area that actually has much greater ownership of 3 or more cars. 3 or more cars. In fact, the rate of ownership for 3 or more cars in Greater Melbourne is 16.3%. All right, and in my suburb, it's 30.9%. In Taylor's Lakes and Keilor Lodge, 34.3%. So more than double the average of Greater Melbourne with 3 or more cars. Okay, I think that's pretty indicative of what's going on in that regard. Even for 2 or more cars, there's 51.5% in Greater Melbourne. In Canley, 72%. In other areas around the same. So a hell of a lot greater percentage of car ownership, simply because people cannot get to their workplaces. So I guess what I want to say is this. I want to call on this Labor government to start acting for the community and not just voicing empty words and empty promises. We've got a situation here, and I think this is morally outrageous, that you can't get a bus down the main thoroughfare in Canley. Canley Drive. Development Victoria have been responsible for this site since 2013, and they have still not arranged for a major bus route down Canley Drive. Yet you can ring up and get a free bus to the pokies venues, to and from the pokies venues. So in my view, that's an absolute disgrace. Do something about it, Labor. Don't give us any more empty words. We're sick of it. We want some action, and we want some equality and some parity. You're going to spend $35 billion out on a rail line that's going to go 26 kilometres, yet out in the West, they're not prepared and not even prepared to attend here. I'm sorry, I don't want to sound political, but I think this is an unjust situation. I think we deserve better as a community. So we're actually calling for action. Forget the words, we're sick of them. And we do vote. We have a say. For all of you who are watching online, remember that as well. We can change things if we act together as a community. And I would love to see that happen for the sake of all of us. I think we deserve better as a community. I want to see young people in this community, the new arrivals, the emerging communities who I worked for and with as well for so long, to have a fair go, just like every other part of Melbourne. I don't think that's unreasonable. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Graeme, for that very impassioned. I hear it. At the end of the day, it's about people. It's Great. I'm going to hand it over now to Dr. John Stone, who's a senior lecturer in transport planning at Melbourne Uni and a long-time social and environmental activist. So great to have you with us, John.
Thanks,
The floor
John.
is yours.
It's great to see so many of you here and online as well. Hopefully we are beaming out people, so there was more technology. But I just want to go a little bit further beyond what everybody else has said. It's really clear how much public transport is for everyone and needed by everyone, and the stories that we've heard through the videos, which will be through Friends of the Earth going out leading up to the election, telling the stories of those people and others in a lot of detail about what it's like for a young woman who has to wait at school from the end of school to 6 o'clock every day from year 7 until 30 years now, because there's no bus to get her home. So my work and my colleague Ian Laurie, we've been trying to work out what do we do about that. And many cities around the world have found ways to get better buses in suburban areas that look very like what we have today. So, yeah. So this is a way of mapping public transport accessibility. It's a model that's been set up by colleagues of mine in Western Australia, and they've looked at cities around the world. And if you don't have a service that runs more than 30 minutes in peak hour and 1 hour during the day, you're basically in a black hole. And that's what most of the West is. Even if you're in the places in the West like Sunshine, which is above average accessibility, it's only for those people living very close to Sunshine Station. This map really shows how is it possible to get to other places. Could you get, if I wanted to get a job and I lived in any of these places, even in the places near the railways, it's very hard to get anywhere else. So this map really just sums up the problem. You just can't get anywhere. But if you want to understand sort of why that is, we have a bus system or bus spaghetti that looks like this. And the reason it looks like this is because of the KPI that the department has, the objectives that they work for with their bus stop, their bus system, is to say everybody should have a bus stop within 400 metres of their home. Those are words for family people, but for other people, that's the target. And they say a bus stop, so a pole. But it doesn't matter to those people who are performing to that target, whether the bus comes or not. So if you don't have a bus on a Sunday, you don't have a bus after 6 o'clock, you don't have a bus during the day of 40 minutes or an hour every day, you've still met that target. And that's because the bus system is an absolute minimum safety. There's no expectation from the people who run the bus system that people who have a choice will actually use it. That's why people have so many cars. And as they face cost of living rises, if they could get rid of one of those cars, how much relief would that be? Dinner tables across the West. So we looked at this map and we said, how many buses is it running there? How many bus service hours? It's the technical term. How many bus service hours have we got running around in the West in these complicated patterns that people find hard to understand and certainly hard to use? So we said, what would happen if we took that number of buses, that number of service hours, and put them on the map of the West in a different way? So that's the next slide. And the next one, too. So to simplify it, we said, let's just try and run these buses in straight lines. I met a friend the other day and he said, what have you been doing? And I said, I've been doing things about buses in the West. And he said, oh, yeah, I saw that. That's about buses going fast in straight lines. Absolutely. That's across the class. But so this map is indicative of the future that we could have. If anybody knows some of these areas, you see that there's buses going over freeways or over railway lines in ways that they can't do at the moment. So this is a long-term ambition. But we just said, if you did all those things, which would be still expensive but cheaper than further railway, what could we get and how many buses would it take to operate a 10-minute service 7 days a week till midnight? So and Ian, like much more technically minded colleague than me, he got hold of a model that transport planners use, that the DOT uses, and we could actually see how many service hours it took to run service with that sort of frequency. And when the number came out the other end, we were amazed. It was basically the same as what we had running around the suburbs now. And that was, wow, we knew that there was efficiencies in having a bus system where you have the frequency that allows you to get anywhere to anywhere else. So if you are at any of these points, you can get on that bus and then get off and connect to another bus. And if you only have to wait an average of 5 minutes, people will start to do that sort of thing. It's hard to imagine taking 2 buses in the West at the moment, where one is away from possible. But this is what we're basis of our idea. But if you, we knew that from international experience in Auckland, Canadian cities all over the world, and from the academic sort of understanding of this, that there would be efficiencies and could get more. So it was pretty amazing that we found it get so much more. But we can't have that tomorrow because we would need to be building bridges for buses and bikes and things over freeways and over railways and over some creeks. So this is the long-term ambition. But what we also found was that if we add a few more bus kilometres into the system, a few more bus service hours into the system, at a cost of around $30 million for the bus services, and about the same $30 million for the sorts of priority measures that the smart bus system already has, getting ahead of the lights and getting better stops and so on. Simple things that we've done already in Melbourne. And we could get the speed of the buses up to the same speed as the smart bus system, about 25 kilometres an hour on average. Then we could run a network like this, or looking on the existing road network, for about $30 million more in annual operating expenses. And this is something that the Department of Transport, it has a huge number of expert bus planners in there. I know this because they're my students or trained over the last and they came out, but they understand this principle and they're working really hard to overcome the inertia of years of doing it the way we have. And small bus companies feeling they own their objective to change. But people are starting to come on board with this as a new way. Even the Committee for Melbourne, usually sort of thinking about what happens in the hallowed halls of boardrooms in the city. Part of their election ask is for bus reforms at this time. So it's becoming something that's well understood. And the Minister even has a bus reform plan, which he put out last year, which says this sort of thing in roundabout language. But we are in a position where the momentum is with us to get this sort of change, get commitments to do that. And that's what these meetings are about. That's why Friends of the Earth got on board, because they saw how important it is for communities and for the climate that we do this with electric buses. So that we are getting a change. So you are asking people, come and see a new bus system. We're doing a system which is different. It doesn't go around so many corners, so it's much more smooth to ride. It's electric. You may have to walk a little bit further for this bus. This network is not every 400 metres, it's every 800 metres on average. So some people may have to walk further. And Danny will have more to say about how we support people there, because this sort of system will need some sort of community transport to get people out of the estates and onto the arterial roads. But that should be a universal system and a connected system, so you do it all on your bike. But if we go on to the next slide, I think you can see here that when we did this analysis, we said what would happen, how much better would the access be to all the important places that plans in Melbourne say we should have access to. So there's 26 or more activity centres across the West. So we used this modelling system to say how many people could actually get to those places within 30 minutes on a weekday evening and Sunday morning. And we found that in all of these places, there was significant improvement. But people down in Hoppers Crossing, we get 10 times more people able to get there. But that means more people, more young people are able to get to work at a local retail centre, be able to get there on a Sunday morning without their parents having to take them there, be able to get to apprenticeships, all of those things which, you know, as we'll hear from others, are really important for the economy of this area and how public transport is a vital piece in the job market. So we've shown that this benefits people and we've shown that it's affordable. So really, and we know that the government is moving to bring in more electric buses. We need to accelerate that. We can make them in Geelong, we can make them in the West, we can make them in Ballarat. We need to accelerate our uptake of electric buses so that over the next term, people can start to see this sort of bus network. So that's what we're really calling on whoever the next government be. It seems like it's a pretty sure bet that it will be the Andrews government. Ben Carroll has said he wants to remain minister. So it's going to be down to him to answer this call with coming population. And this is really in a bit of detail, you can find all this on our website, but putting it in simple terms about what we think can happen. And we think that this sort of new network can be turned around within the next term of government. They did it in this sort of time frame in Auckland, and there they were getting, before COVID hit, growth in public transport use 5 times faster than the population was growing. So they were moving people out of cars and into public transport. So we know this stuff works. We just need to get the political will to go from a vague sounding all plan to direct action, to see this happen. And to do that, we're going to need voices in everybody. As Laura said, we're going to have to build this into a campaign that continues after the election. Friends of the Earth are here to work with you to help you organise that voice and target that voice. So we're talking at the end of the meeting about exactly what people need to do. But I'm really grateful that people are actually taking up these ideas, because it's no use me being an academic sitting in the room with having an idea. You have to be part of the process of making that idea come reality, and that's what things like this is about. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to working with you over the months ahead to get it to become a reality. Thank you.
Thanks, John. It's making a whole lot of sense. I want to invite up our final speaker, Danny Davis, who's the Managing Director at Linked, the largest community transport provider in Victoria. Also is a visiting fellow at UTS. Great to have you with us, Danny.
Thank you very much.
Floor is yours.
Excellent. Excellent. So thank you very much. Huge congratulations to what you have been able to do in getting that fast running buses in straight lines into people's minds. The department has got something, possibly got what you're telling them. There is really stuff happening. There's one thing that I kind of want you to hear. It's that the system to that is local transport. This is about arterial transport, about getting from place to place fast, regularly and easily. What I want you to take away is that local transport is possible because it's forgotten. Right? We're coming from a point where we're the largest community transport provider in Victoria. Now, I don't even want to use the term community transport because nobody understands what it is. Not the people who fund us, not the Department of Transport, sometimes not even ourselves. It's a whole mishmash of looking after all of those people who fall through the cracks. And they fall through the cracks for all sorts of reasons. So if you think of us as public transport for people who cannot access public transport, that's what we're doing tonight. If you think about local transport being possible, we talk about it as the sister to arterial transport, it's capillary transport. It's filling out and filling up all those spaces. If people can't get the 800 metres, if people can't get 100 metres, if people can't get 50 metres, if people can't get on the vehicle, if people need help, that's where we fit in, and that is what is possible to deliver. If there is one thing that I want you to take away, it is that local transport is possible. And one other thing that I want you to take away, if you can do too, is that if you're going to have a local transport system, you need one system, a single unified system. At the moment, we have a fragmented mess. There's stuff funded by aged care, there's stuff funded by NDIS, there's stuff funded by local councils, there's stuff. It's a mess. And you can't use that service if you're eligible for this. And you can't use it. It's horrible. It's actually cruel. And it's not just transport, by the way, it's in-home care and all sorts of other things about that. We need to have one system that fits together, that behaves as public transport. Look at it, the best practice around the globe is more or less the Uberization of the bus fleet. So hail the bus. If you're a registered user, it knows your specific needs. And it sends a vehicle that is specific to you. Now, that might be a vehicle that's touring around the area and diverts and picks you up. Or it might be a special vehicle. One system. Into public transport, knowing the destination that you're trying to get to and when the train's going to go and get you there on time, knowing what your special needs are, if you're aged, if you're vulnerable, whatever it might be, it gives accredited drivers so it's safe to transport on. All of these things be part of one unified system. Another thing I want to point out here that we're bringing to the attention of some of the people, the bureaucrats, ministers, is for those of us who use public transport, and good on us for if we do, and I probably do it more, but you use the vehicle, you buy a ticket, that ticket is 87 to 92% public subsidised. Okay? And that's good. And the Productivity Commission just did a report last year that said, keep doing it. That is the right thing to do. The system wouldn't be viable. It's good for the economy. It's good for social. Keep up the good work. Well done. If you cannot use public transport, you are not getting that subsidy. If you're an older person, for instance, and you're using some special vehicle service, etc., you'll say, oh, it's covered in your package. Okay, I think we all know about NDIS and packages same for each year. I'm not even going to go there. Let's pretend that works for a second and that you have transport in your system. I like that. If you get transport in your package, for most people, that is one trip a month. Sometimes just in one direction. That is not enough to stay well. If you want any more transport, you pay for it yourself, 100% cost recovery out of your own pocket. Does that make sense? If the Productivity Commission says it is good to provide public transport funding for public transport, guess what? We should be providing public transport funding for the people who currently can't access public transport. It's just purely social equity. It's the moral aspect to it, but it's also the participation aspect to it. There's all sorts of economics behind this as well. So it's the economic participation, getting to jobs, getting to school, getting to work, making it possible for people to participate in society. There is the economic cost of the health system, where all of the evidence is out there that shows that people who are connected, staying connected to services and community, who have equitable access to health services and social interaction, live better. They live better lives, and they are a lower long-term cost health system, to aged care system, to all of these higher care needs. So there is a real economic imperative for getting this right. Transport is not done for transport's sake. Transport is done for the sake of the society and the global budget. So we're starting to get people to pay attention to some of these things. When I point out things like this is purely equity of funding for public transport, for some of the bureaucrats and the ministers, that's kind of like, oh, yes, that's not right. But I mean, they know that it's just below the surface and they don't know it. So we need to call it out. We need to actually have equitable services for everyone. I heard the politicians say it. equity of access to services, community and opportunity. It's real, it's possible, it is dependent on access to transport and mobility. Mobility is one of the most important things. So Jared, particularly for vulnerable people. So Jared Mansell, the Commissioner for Aged Care in Victoria, recently did a large survey. The most important thing for people's personal well-being identified in the survey was secure housing. I think second was mobility. 92% of people there put mobility as vitally important for their well-being. So again, if we're on the political front here and we think people find this is important, 92% of the vulnerable older people said that was their second top issue. Right? If you think about it in terms of, again, where we're coming from here and we look at the population we serve, we talk about active retirement through to palliative care. We're talking about 30% of the population and their families who are currently having to take people from it, and younger people as well. If we can free that up, this is important to large percentages of the population across the board. We need this to be treated as public transport with equity across the board. It is possible. It is made possible through technology. Not talking driverless vehicles. They'll come in due course when they get here. It will be longer than people think, and it's sooner than people think, because that's the way these technologies roll out. I'm just purely talking about, as I said, kind of the Uberization, being able to hail, being able to take it from the vehicle, being able to book, being able to have ease of access to service, and where the system knows you. So it can provide you a service easily and can provide you the service you need, no matter what your needs are. That is the best practice. That is what we can achieve. From the arterial transport point of view, it's going to do one thing, because it is hand in glove. It is the system to this. The big objection, the big weakness, I think, for getting up this arterial strategy of buses and straight lines makes absolute sense for everybody. You know, why do you have these stupid buses that nobody? Because it's going to end up on the front page of the Herald Sun, where grandma can't get to bowls, and they're going to make a big thing of it. And the minister doesn't want that to happen and is afraid, and he isn't going to back the program because he doesn't want to end up with that report. We upgrade local buses. All right, so turning that to this, your local bus is not being taken away, it is being upgraded. Yes, that old vehicle that nobody uses is going away, but you can now have this. And this will get you where you want, when you want, no matter what your needs are. It has to be based not just on the moral side of it, but on the equity side of it and on the economic side of it. The economics of this are real, and we are drawing people's attention to, again, at the ministerial level. The difficulty of this is that it is cross-department. So the benefits of it are seen in aged care, it's seen in disability, it's seen in housing, it's seen in planning, it's seen in all of these different things. So it, unfortunately, and this is the difficult part, it needs to have attention of Treasury, it needs to have attention of the Premier to bring it together. And that's a big ask. Fortunately, there is a economic planning framework. I'm going to go there technical because I'm a dweeb, but the early intervention investment framework put out by the Treasurer that actually has a mechanism saying, how do you take all of that complexity across different departments and the long-term budget and say, what do I need to do now to save Victoria billions in the long term? We need transport planners to know that's there and push the planning that way, because that's what's going to engage Treasury. That's what's going to pull it through from multiple departments and actually make it as simple as possible. So again, take away, it is possible. One unified network is the answer. Take away the fragmentation, give something effective, efficient, works for real people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. That was really great.
One second, I do have, although I do have some examples of the materials that we're giving to ministers looking for election funding. If anybody wants to see those and have a read of what we're putting forward, come and see me afterwards.
Thanks so much. We're about to go to a break, but just before we do, I just had a request from Councillor Trung, just to give an update on what's happening in Brimbank Council around transport for a minute or two, and then we'll break for 5 minutes, then we'll go to our panel. So.
Yes, John.
Good evening, congratulations. My name's Trung. I'm Councillor of Brimbank City Council. I was asked quickly 2 minutes to a brief update relation to what's council has been done relation to transport. I'll keep my hat separate relation to the policy, relation to the politics side of things, but just update you all relation to, because I'm the connectivity portfolio holders for Brimbank City Council, so I'll update you what we've done and what we're advocating for so far relation to buses. So when I saw Laura early in the year, and she mentioned about buses, I go, great, because the world is what we've been advocating for all this time. And I'd ask her, could you do this externally? And while we do this internally, we can push for more buses. So listen to what Laura said, listen to bus terminal, listen to Sunshine to the hub. It's critical. We advocate very much relating to, for example, the new station in Dermot, railway station. The initial plan for that was bus stop terminal on the other side of the railway station. That was the plan. So when I heard of that, because I'm the portfolio, we had to advocate really quickly, strongly to make sure the bus will be actually inside the railway station connectivity. That's important. So with externally pressure and internally, we actually successfully advocate, and we actually all the council support. We actually got the plan changed in a very short period of time. If we didn't do that, the once that construction start happening, the bus terminal would end up on the other side of Dermot Road, and you had to cross on the train to get the buses. That's not acceptable. So we, as a council, we successfully done that, and that's why. So in relation to the Sunshine, leading to the Sunshine Super Hub, that raised a flag for me too, as the portfolio holder goes. I asked the question, definitely there'll be an increase of capacity. We know that you can see that. And the answer we got back so far is basically same amount of terminal as current. And we're still pushing for it, but their response was basically the rotation of the bus, the bus timetable. But I'll still, in the future, as Laura said, in the future, that the capacity will increase. We need to plan forward and advocate now. So that hopefully, until we will still advocate for externally, same thing, we need your pressure to advocate for that as well. Whoever is government, we need to make sure it is has capacity to cater for down the track. So, and also in relation to bus routes, we know our municipality has increasing the development all over the place. For example, the bus route at the moment does not cater for all the areas. And for example, Sunshine, there we go, Water Garden, all the hubs, and we're not getting enough service all the way through. And in relation to our current transport paper, we advocate a lot more service. So i.e. Camley, we advocate for good buses, review that also for River Valley development as well. There's no bus stop going up there as well. So we're as council, we're advocating all this review, let's all the bus service. And hopefully we internally we keep pressuring, and externally groups like as the external groups, small external group pressure as well. We get all the bus service in our Brimbank, but we definitely need more service all over the place. So that as a city Brimbank, we strongly support more buses. All the councils support that, and we're actually strong as a whole. We have been advocating quite a bit, very strongly to the government most institutions to service the buses. So, and we have been very successful in various areas, but we still need a lot more to go. I want to update you in relation to what we've done so far as a council on behalf of the community so far. That's all quickly. Great. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to break for 2 or 3 minutes. So please stand up, stretch your legs, grab a bite to eat, top up your drink, go to the bathroom, and then we'll reconvene in 2 or 3 minutes' time. Sweet.
What, like?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. And our people.
Hi, John.
I'm good.
But you haven't been carrying the internet like. That's a terrible thing. Yeah.
I mean, I'm listening to this chair.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's got-
Yeah. Might sit this- As long as my head's like.
Well, I think we'll move this.
Everybody.
Not feeling seasick?
Oh.
I can't.
Out of dozen?
Bus, train, train. Very annoying.
Sorry, Jasmine.
Questions, Jasmine.
Ask her all the hard questions. That's for you later. All right, we might get underway. So we're going to go into a bit of a Q&A for the next, how long have people got? For about the next 40 minutes or so. What I'll ask people to do, our candidates to do actually, is to introduce themselves just to get us going, and to share briefly their thoughts on buses and transport and what sort of things they would like to see happen if they were given the opportunity to influence the direction of transport in our city. So maybe Virginia, we'll start with you. Take it away.
Oh, great, cool. Thank you. Two things that I want to share with you. When I first read Dr. Stone's paper, Better Bus Networks for Fairer Suburbs, it struck a really big chord for me. Also, a conversation I had with Peter Parker about the huge gaps in the bus services only reinforced what emerged to me, that public transport and its access is the single most significant barrier here in Brimbank. I worked as an employment officer in St Albans for years, dealing directly with long-term unemployed people. I assisted people in their preparation, application, interview, and hopefully success and retention in jobs. The biggest barrier for most was not getting the job, but staying in the job was access to transport and mobility. I quickly found out that most industrial and some commercial business parks and precincts in Brimbank did not have buses running in the morning or night shifts. A very sophisticated process that involved everything from shared rides, group taxis, even buying bikes for job applicants to get to train stations and then to get to jobs. None of those solutions were ever sustainable for more than a week. Many employment consultants drove the applicants themselves. These people wanted to work. Another case that stands really strong in my mind was a person I assisted with a disability in getting a job at Airport West Shopping Centre. It was his first job. We sat down together in front of a journey planner. On the screen, a car trip would take maximum 15 to 20 minutes. This journey using public transport was one and a half hours. It involved catching a bus to St Albans, a train to Sunshine, bus to High Point, 13 stops, walked 3 minutes to a bus stop in Maribyrnong. From there, a tram to Moonee Ponds, interchange, then another bus to Miliara that takes you to Moore Road and Lewis Street, then a 6-minute walk to get to Airport West Shopping Centre to start your shift. The person worked here for 6 months before I was able to arrange a transfer to Deer Park after a probation was successfully completed. Most people, I feel, and I know myself, I would not have lasted that long with that, such a convoluted and long process. But he was just happy to get a job. It boggles the mind that in a time with unprecedented jobs, Brimbank still has one of the highest youth unemployment rates. Access to efficient and connected public transport, I believe, is the key. In my extensive conversation with Peter Parker, he highlighted to me some quick and easy service upgrades that don't cost a lot, but could make a significant change to people's lives here. Sunday frequency boosted on popular routes at a low cost. Upgrades already, that's a winner. Routes in low-income catchments such as St Albans and Keenleigh to train stations, and Bork, which we've just opened. Better frequency for 418, 419, 425 in St Albans that currently run every 40 minutes. The Sunshine Deer Park Water Gardens are upgraded to a smart bus with longer operating hours. And in Keenleigh, as we know, and as was just said by Graeme, you can call and get a bus to the Deer Park Pokies However, no bus runs down the main street thoroughfare, speaks volumes on the gaps and the underservicing that has been neglected for far too long. Evidence and international modelling has shown investment in transition to clean electric bus operating on a fast, frequent, connected network, once established, can go even faster. But you need to take that first important step of including a significant budget and investment allocation to improve bus reform. We cannot wait for rail infrastructure that could take another decade with huge blowouts already estimated. We cannot wait till we are so gridlocked with continued growth in the West, emissions from cars, landfill, smoke, industrial precincts, heat island effects that are choking us. We need a decision to be made right now, before the election, with a significant budget attached. As an independent candidate running for St Albans in the upcoming election, some of my own advocacy policies are to increase and double the current commitment of 341 new electric buses to be operational by 2030. We can do it. We can do a lot better than that. I will lobby for free bus travel for all TAFE and tertiary students in Brimbank. Feeder buses, matching rail timetables. Stop growing rail car parks. We all know, and I know serving on council for the last 6 years, the car parks are these prized possessions for people. However, that's only because we haven't shifted this anomaly to a frequent and connected bus network. Once we have that, there won't be that dependence on car parks. Buses that can run early and night shifts to jobs hubs like Derrimut, Brooklyn, Laverton, etc. And an orbital bus that runs to Melbourne Airport, stopping at Sunshine and St Albans train stations. The mile is a long way off, but we can, with buses, get a whole workforce to the airport cheaper and quicker with an orbital bus route, laying the groundwork for a future mile. In wrapping up, I'd like to thank Friends of the Earth, especially Elise and Dr. Stone, Peter Parker, and the whole crew for invigorating this important discussion. One important ingredient to make all this happen is political will. I can assure you that as someone whose car turbo just blew up on my beautiful Subaru, and in the middle of a campaign, mind you, the utter panic that has kicked in, and I feel that I have no mobility. I have no way, there is no bus near me that I can get to anywhere. What do? This is a travesty. The absolute necessity has become almost a high maintenance cost for running a car or cars, are a huge cost burden on a highly disadvantaged demographic. It's not a question anymore. We must commit to a better bus strategy for a fairer West. We have to do it. Thank you.
Trung, going to say some opening remarks and introduce yourself and what you're about.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me, and it's been nice order of Howlers, yes, well, and Dr. John Scott and all their speakers earlier. My name is Trung. I'm running for the upper house Western Metro summer elections for the Liberal Party. So, and I just want to give you a very brief some of the policies and some announcements what we as a Liberal Party going to do to help to improve our bus system in overall Victoria, but mainly what I'm focusing on is the western suburb and the outer west as well. So basically, as announced, we all know that our bus system is way out of date, and we will do a total review of the bus system the weekend government. So that the overall of the system. Now, if you see me earlier, Dr. Johnson mentioned about show you all the map lesson to the way the current bus system is always going in circles and jiggles. Mainly that's because of our date, and that's how municipality develop, our region develop, and more housings. It's not facilitating all the capacity as we need, and more roads being developed as well. Give you an example, just even in this area itself, West Road Drive, which linked from south to north, from Barrett Road all the way up to Watervale Garden, whereas before it didn't. So that's why the buses stop basically at the moment still go down to south, then come back down again. So those new roads have been developed. So we need to overhaul the whole system. And plan or something like Scott mentioned lesson, some sort of that sort of model lesson to the lesson with lesson. But there are challenges lesson to actually promote that sort of system. There are challenges lesson to the amount of travel for lesson to people from getting to one bus stop to the other. At the moment, I think it's about 400 metres to bus stop on the Held Housing. There's a bus stop, whereas that system is a little bit more, but there are things which will compensate for frequencies and reliabilities. That model that's now it's another case. So, license the bus system, we want people to get back to the bus system. We've got to encourage people, not just make incentive. And one of the main thing is cost, economics cost. Our announcement recently, $2 bus fare for everybody, no matter who you are, $2, $1 for concession. That's all trip. For example, this morning I went to get a coffee, cost me $5.50. Now it's 50 cents, that's 3 days travel. Anywhere, if I want to work in Frankston, I'm just $2. I go down there and come back. That no matter what, economic, that's the main thing. So that cost that encourage people to travel. And you want to park your car, so you drive up your car, parking probably costs $6 for an hour in the city. So think about it. That's a great incentive for everybody to go to public transport. Reliability and frequency. That's why we need to have a review. We want more buses and frequency. At the moment, the bus stop, for example, in Sunshine, half an hour, and you miss the bus, you don't know. The next one, I'll get next one, that's half an hour later. You might not get it, if you will come. More frequently, like 15 minutes, 10 minutes. You miss one, whatever it is, what you walk there, it takes too long, you know, nothing's still going to be there. So frequency is important, reliability. So more frequent, more buses. That's what we do. That's what our plan is basically cost, like it efficient, less than the bus system and more frequency, less than the bus system. And that's what if we're government, that's what we're going to plan to do, less than the whole bus system, less to that. So, but we're having a bus system, reliability and more frequent bus require maintenance on roads, carriageway, facilitate the bus itself. As you realise, we just announced $1.5 billion on road service itself for the West. And we need to cater for the bus system. You can't say we want more bus and we want bus here and there without actually facilitating the actual bus system itself. And that's why it's so important. We focus some thought on the road as well, facilitate our bus system. So that the money is there, if the government, $1.5 billion on road, upgrade, and that's where it's very important to have the bus and the road to facilitate that as well. Now, lesson two, go environment, I'll be quick. Environment, EV, our policy also by 2030, all our EV, it's 100%, we want 50%, committed to 50%, all the transport, lesson to 100%, zero emission, sorry, zero emission at 50% by 2030, that's only 50 years ago. That's our commitments to lesson to the EV. And also, lesson to area which we cannot get lesson the bus system. Like I said, we announced in summary, there is a flexi ride. That's also to facilitate for area which can't get big buses in, small bus cater. It's not a schedule, but it's on call and it's happening right now. We commit to it in summary. So it's for you ring up, you need location, they'll pick up you and you drop it off at various hubs. So we've got all sort of things like to get people off the road and use the bus system. So our commitments, we want people back on public transport, cost efficiency, and we're here to do it. That's our policies. Thank you. Thank you. Great.
Now over to Meg from the Animal Justice Party. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Meg Watkins and I'm running with the Animal Justice Party in the Upper House for Western Metro. I'm also speaking tonight on behalf of some of our other candidates, Catherine Vida at the back there for Cooroy, Nat Kokas is running with me in the Upper House, Jason Caracassis for St Albans, and I've also got Shannon Miley on Zoom online. She was very excited to be able to join in via Zoom and has wanted me to let everyone know that she's available for questions and things afterwards as well online. So you would be forgiven for thinking that the Animal Justice Party doesn't really have a place at a transport forum, but I can assure you that we do. We have really comprehensive policy platform. In fact, it's more comprehensive. We have more policies than most of the major parties, and it covers issues relating to people, animals, climate, social justice, and transport. We know that the West has historically been left behind on a lot of fronts, not the least of which is transport infrastructure. And we know that the southern 2/3 of the city of Brimbank are among Melbourne's most socio-economically disadvantaged areas, with demographics consisting significantly of migrants, young people, and culturally and linguistically diverse communities. And Brimbank experiences relatively low levels of motor vehicle ownership and workforce and education participation, which does mean it's even more vital that we have accessible and affordable public transport networks which get people to the services they need. But I don't need to tell you all that the Brimbank bus network is unreliable, indirect, and carbon polluting. And I also don't need to tell you that there are cheaper, quicker, and more efficient solutions like the ones we've heard about tonight. I know what you want to hear is really simple. It's whether your politicians are actually going to get to work on changing things. So here's the Animal Justice Party's plan to transform the Brimbank PT network. We'll support Better Buses advocacy to build a bus network which will operate on 10-minute frequency and connect people directly to essential services. Upgrade to 100% electric buses in Brimbank and throughout the West by 2025. Invest in better orbital public transport, particularly to support growth areas in the West like the Melbourne Metro too. Decarbonise the transport sector by providing government incentives to producers and consumers so they can switch to more eco-friendly land transport solutions, which will in turn promote clean technology and get vehicles off the road, which we know are proven to harm human health. And we'll also push to double down on investment in active transport and walkability, working alongside a council to prioritise active transport in town planning, which will complement and improve bus network. And like I said before, the Animal Justice Party is not a single issue party, but we do bring a unique perspective to politics, which is that we are the only party who truly considers animals in all decision making, which includes transport. And that's why I won't only invest in making public transport accessible and affordable, but I want it to be animal friendly too. Buses should be safe for companion and assistant animals travelling with their owners, and a properly funded bus network will get more people out of their cars, which is crucial to managing the effects of urban sprawl, the destruction of wildlife habitat, and animals killed from road stray. I'm also committed to building wildlife-friendly crossing infrastructure, which allows wildlife to move safely where roads intersect ecological corridors. This would again complement an integrated bus network, active transport, and other progressive rail solutions. Locals in the city of Brimbank deserve serious investment in safe and climate-friendly service solutions, which actually improve connectivity. The Animal Justice Party will support projects that improve livability, which are not only backed by industry experts, but community experts, which is all of you, people who actually live and work here. We know that when people in the Brimbank and throughout the West have access to better public transport and better buses, they will use them. Locals in Brimbank simply don't need more 4-year election commitments. They need 10-year and 20-year plans. And we need rational and bold, yes, you can be both, whole of society solutions which put people, animals, and the environment first. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Meg. I'll hand it over now to Liz from the Victorian Socialist Party.
Yeah, my name's Walsh. I'm the Victorian Socialist candidate for the Western Metro. So yeah, thanks for putting on these incredible forums, Friends of the Earth, and all the other organisations that partnered with Friends of the Earth. I've learned an enormous amount through attending the 3 forums, and I think it's a real shame that the Labor Party has failed to come to a single one of the 3 forums. I think it's a real disrespect to communities in the Western suburbs. They also learn a hell of a lot from attending. And I think it is symptomatic of a broader problem for the Western suburbs, which is that the Labor Party take us for granted. And I think that's one thing, the fact that we're safe Labor seats. But the other thing is that it's about class. It's about not prioritising the lives of working class migrant communities and having enormous amount of investment going into the leafy eastern suburbs, where there's all the private schools and mansions, and then in the western suburbs we have second-rate services. So I think it's a broader, the situation for public transport is reflective of a broader problem. Childcare, lack of public schools, the fact that our schools are have enormous amount of students, that people have no school in Williams Landing, and there's all sorts of broader questions of neglect of services. So for Victorian Socialists, we, in terms of one of our key priorities, is to bring our public services back into public hands. We're opposed to privatisation. We think that privatisation has been a failure, a mistake. It's being sold to us on the basis of a lie, that it would provide us with cheaper, more efficient, more reliable services. That's not true. That's certainly not been true of electricity. It's also not true of public transport as well. So Socialists have always opposed to privatisation of our services. In the 90s, we were part of movements fighting back against Jeff Kennett, marching on the streets, supporting striking workers, supporting tram conductors fighting for their jobs, and so on. So that's definitely a big passion of ours, and we would advocate for bringing public transport back into public hands. We don't think that the government should be subsidising the profits of private companies, in particular, the train network, French companies. It's ridiculous. We 100% support the Friends of the Earth campaign for a better bus network for the West. John Stone's made a very clear and articulate case for it as well. It's great to see activist academics who get out of the just the halls of academia and actually try and win the public to their vision as well. It's clear that it's very rational and possible. The amount of investment is not, is not a lot. But also, I don't think that we should be saying, oh, well, we can only do things that are, most economically feasible. We only want a few crumbs. We should be demanding decent, well-funded, properly integrated, connected public transport all across the West, whatever the hell that costs. We have a right to it. The social right to be able to get around our city, to be able to have access to free, reliable, efficient public transport. So I think that key part of our socialist approach to fight for public transport is that these things are a fight. It's not just a matter of a logical argument. We need to bring collective pressure to bear on the powers that be. We have to organise, we have to agitate. Sometimes that might be community forums like this. Other times it might be protests. And other times it might also involve things like strikes. So that is definitely a key part of our socialist approach to social change, is that we, as a community, have to get organised to fight for something better. The other key question for us is obviously the climate. We need a better public transport system, so we've got to get cars off the road. That means we don't think that the priority is a massive investment of billions of dollars into our road network, like the Liberal Party do. Instead, our priority very much is not about more roads to get more cars on the road, which equals more congestion, but a much more integrated, coherent, and extensive public transport system, and also active transport. This is important for our climate. We are in a climate emergency. That means that it's an emergency. It's not something that we have to do in the future, but it has to be done right now. This is the absolute priority for our society as we hurtle into absolute catastrophe. So we think that there needs to be immediate radical solutions to try and address the climate catastrophe, and that involves much more world-class public transport system and active transport network with what we currently have. And that means putting people and the environment before profit. It is about policy. It's not just about logical policy. It's about putting up political movements to fight for that kind of vision. People and the environment before profit.
Down the end, we've got Bernadette. Over to you.
Thank you. And thanks everybody. My name is Bernadette. I'm the Greens candidate running for 3 here. I'm in the upper house for the Greens for the West Metro. This is the 4th transport forum that I've spoken at. And I was talking to somebody today and they said, oh, what's happening in the West? How's the campaign going? And I said, well, we've had 4, or we're just about to have our 4th transport forum across the West. That's unheard of in my I don't know, 15 years of political campaigning that we've had such a focus on this side of town on this issue, or on many issues, but on transport in particular. So I think for the West, our time has come. We're speaking out collectively, you know, across the political spectrum. We're all unified of the fact that we need better public transport services, whether it's in Brimbank, whether it's even in some parts of the inner west where I live. It's not perfect, but it wasn't one of the small dots I noticed on John's lovely map there. But the further west you go, the less likely you are to have access to any kind of public services, any kind of public transport. So I agree with this. We do need to act collectively on this issue. So attending the four transport forums, that I think the thing that, reflecting on the four, that has struck me the most is the impact that it has on people's ability to participate in community life. Now, Danny mentioned it earlier. I think John may have sort of touched on it, but I listened to one of the podcasts that Friends of the Earth had on the 3CR, and a woman named Sarah who lives somewhere in Brimbank, I don't know her, but she said she's a single parent. She catches the bus everywhere. She's reliant on the bus, but the bus stops at night. A lot of the community groups or the interest groups or the workshops and sessions that she wants to go to, she can't get to simply because the buses don't run at that time. So for her, she is completely disconnected from a whole lot of things that could enrich her life and make her life, much more fun and much, she would be able to grow as a person. But she can't simply because she can't exercise. So I can see what's nodding because I know we've all had some kind of experience like that if we're relying on transport. So I think that's the key to winning this sort of argument in spaces. And as a Greens representative, of course, we are also focused on that we are in a climate emergency, and transport emissions are the fastest growing emissions of any sector. So we do need to move people who can get out of cars and transport or ride their bike or walk or catch the train, so that we can make space for people like Danny's sort of cohort who rely on road-based transport to move them around. And I think the other evil thing that struck me is it's not just moving people, commuters who are here in the city or Brimbank or wherever else to go to the city or somewhere. It's people moving around their neighbourhoods and their communities, visiting the shops, the library, the cinema, having a coffee with a friend, visiting their grandmother, going to childcare, whatever it is. It's being able to, if this was our physically, geographically, our community, it's us being able to connect with each other within our, that's part of being part of a community and living in this thriving community and living sort of like flourishing and fulfilling life. So I think that's really that's the crux of this argument. So I will tell you what the Greens, what our position is, of course. We've committed to an additional 3,000 electric buses across Victoria and some of the regional towns powered by 100% renewable energy. We want our entire public transport system to be powered by renewable energy. We can do that, and we can do that quite if there's political will. We want buses to run on a sort of a 10-minute turn up and go kind of arrangement, much faster, so that you're not standing at the bus stop waiting for 20 minutes and doesn't be available until you actually do. So we're committed to that. We're also committed to, similar to John's work, committed to reconfiguring the bus systems that we've got within the current resources, because we know that, again, it goes back to quality. We've also got commitments on rail, peak hour, 5 to 10 minutes, 7 days a week, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and similar times on the weekends and out of peak time. So that, again, those people who are relying on nighttime transport or early morning transport don't miss out on those frequencies and don't miss out on those connections across the network. We've also committed some funding to active transport as well, so better walkways and paths to get people to a bus or to a train station, or if they are riding, better bike infrastructure as well, because we need we need to take an integrated approach to this as well. And I know the focus has been on buses for the last three transport forums, but unless we have an integrated transport system and network, it's still not going to work for everybody. So integration, transport planning, I said this last week, integrated land use and transport planning is really key to making this work. So we can't just fix one part of the network because the other 3/4 of the network won't work. So we've got to fix the whole network as well. But starting with buses, particularly in the West where we know, even the fancy airport rail loop is not going to be here until 2025. And some of those other investments won't be here until much later. So we've got to be able to plug the gaps and fill the gaps and make the network work for us much sooner than that. So thanks again to Friends of the Earth for organising To Better West last week, to everybody to come in, because it really is going to take all of our collective efforts to bring about this change so that people in positions of decision making are listening to us and prioritising best, because we've been unprioritised for such a long time. So thanks everyone.
Okay, folks, the moment you've all been waiting for, Q&A. Now, can I just remind us to keep the questions on topic, keep them brief, and for the sake of time, we might do it rapid fire style. So candidates, you're on up the front.
Thank you very much. Look, we all appreciate that we're facing a state election, so everyone's trying to seek a point of difference. However, I feel some real threads there in terms of establishing a coalition of people who are interested in these things. Does anyone have, and certainly that was, some of the speakers were quite strong on that point. Do we have, would anyone like to make some comments on, particularly as we go past that election, how we keep it together and get a coalition going to keep these great ideas coalesced into a plan of action?
Candidates, please.
Yeah, I think you're right to say that we can't stop at the election. This isn't just about getting some commitments from candidates and then we'll go quiet. We have to keep on pushing for a Labor government. And I think that Friends of the Earth hopefully will remain committed to the Better Buses for the West campaign. And I think that that's something in terms of building the Friends of the Earth collective and organising through that and having like the various groups continue to coordinate through that. I think that's important. It'd be interesting to see whether we could post-election organise a rally that to make it a bit more of a public, political pressure as well, and to work together all our different groups to keep the pressure on the spotlight on the need for a Better Buses campaign.
I'd also like to see a cooperation between the councils working together as well as the community groups, because this is an important enough issue, as you said, Bruce, that we need to keep that collective pressure and perhaps consolidate the last 4 meetings, the most important threads from that, and use it as a policy platform now and after the election. Keep it going.
Bernadette down the end, and then we'll go to you, Trung. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Sure.
I think they're both, like, I agree with both of those responses, and I know that I've spoken to almost all of the mayors and CEOs around the West, and public transport is on everybody's advocacy list now, and it's kind of never used to be, but now it's in the top sort of 3 or top 5. So I think there's real, it's kind of like the moment for change now. So I agree with you, it's the start of the process. It's not sort of the end of the process, because we've all said, yes, we agree with whatever. It's the start, it's got to be the start of the process. There's enough, certainly enough political will in this row, it seems, to at least come together after the election to continue the conversation.
That's to us, it's for government, there's no continue, there is continue, there's no stop. Basically, we're committed. Listen to the $2, it's there. Basically, the affordability is there. Listen to the 50 million community fund for charging to establish the 600 charging station. We're committed, it's there. It's going to happen straight away. We listen to the 1.5 billion. It's happening straight away. Once we come, it's there. So there's no stopping. So that's no, what we're going to do, it's going to happen if we're government. There's no, but yes, it's all happened.
Yeah.
Meg, any thoughts?
Like I said in my speech, we don't need more 4-year commitments that are, if we're in government, we do this. We need grassroots community advocacy that intersects with political will, like you both said. And we need 10-year, 20-year, 30-year visions that go well beyond election periods. Obviously, you know, we're all here as election candidates because we know that we can only actually do these things if we get elected, but that doesn't stop us from the grassroots community advocacy and supporting these kind of campaigns and achieving cross-partisan, you know, support and finding those threads between different parties and candidates and independents that go well past the election.
Thank you for your question, Bruce. Other questions? Yes, up the back, ma'am.
I haven't actually got a question, I've got a suggestion.
Right.
I'm from Scotsman, so I was really, what I want to say is the problems of the outer west, the problems of the inner west. So unless we get cars, freight off our roads, you can't get into the city and we can't work in our neighbourhoods because school cars are in our neighbourhoods. And so we want to work, we think we should all work together. Our land use issues are the same. There's very rapid changing land use along the west where total industrial zones are moving further west. We've got growing populations in the inner west as well as the outer west. And so populations are expanding everywhere. We're losing our open space in some places. So the degradation of our environment is occurring at the same time. So I've come, last week I met a number of people at the earlier forums. Thank you to Friends of the Earth for actually bringing this all together. But I think it's a community groups that actually need to form a coalition alliance to feed and hold the politicians work system to put pressure at the political level on whoever is in government, whether it's Labor, Liberal or coalition that we might find ourselves in. But I think it's time now that whether you live in Werribee, whether you live in Brimbank, whether you live in Arrowcombe, whether you live in Spain, we should all now, the various residential groups, community groups, should actually start now to come together to meet regularly, even if it's virtually, to start to say, these are the things that we are happening in all of our areas, and these are the pressures that we want to face. So I'm happy to start, hopefully when Elise is back on deck.
Bus coalition.
It's not just buses, it takes
transport. Yeah.
So it's integrated transport system, including obviously that Danny's talking about. Pillars of park need to be fed. I'm having a stroke, so I need all of my blood vessels to be working. The big ones, the little ones, we can all get around. So
right.
I'm sort of happy to, if people want to give me their contact details, we're in touch with John and a number of other people, but not everybody. If you want to be involved, I'm happy to get involved. It may go nowhere, but it may also go somewhere.
Just comment on that. So what's your name?
I'm Rosa.
Rosa, I totally agree. That's why I spoke to Laura listened to earlier in the year. So externally, you put a pressure, and from my point of view, as a council, we did internally, and that's how we got pressure. Listened to the bus terminal to agree with the government.
I don't have an organisation called Better West. We're largely the Fox Bay sort of area, but we spill over. We don't want to take over the world. We want to add our voice to your voice to make it more powerful.
Right. Thank you, Rosa.
We also at Great Sunshine, we rely to Rosa about how we actually come to this way going forward. Transport's a big issue, but there are others as well. So we can focus on transport to start with. We can start to build those links, get things great.
Great. Thank you, John. Laura, at the back.
Just picking up the theme of councils working together. There was a Western integrated transport strategy in the works. Just wondering if anyone on the panel knows what's going on with that moving forward. I understand it included Tottenham, Sunshine, Maribyrnong, and sort of the outskirts of the area, great issues that are there. And there's a stage 2 discussion paper, but that would be an ideal place to pick up on all the discussions that we've had today. I wonder where it's at.
Is anyone on Lead West maybe that?
Yeah, I'm on Lead West, but it's I don't actually know where it's up to.
it's, I mean, one of the lead most advocacy points is active transport and the two kind of the two related transport ones, but the integrated transit strategy is not on the academics. Okay, that's not what I need to find out. But, yeah. Thank you.
As your mayor, I do met with the other mayors of the Western region, and I'm actually the mayor Hedcock from Hobson's Bay has brought up that we've actually had meeting with Rail Futures Institute, and they were proposing that, well, actually, it's the Western region that needs a connected transport system more so, and they were developing an economic expo. It's more beneficial to put it in the west rather than the east side. And what they actually did was they talked to each council about which train stations that would be beneficial to have in the area. So for example, Moonee Valley, Pitchfork Hill East or Hill Park, and that in that area. But for us, we were talking about, you know, definitely needs to be more some Sunshine as the regional transport super hub, and all the way to Melton about electrifying the rail on that side too. So they put all of that together to form a bit of a proposal to the government about actually we need to have a Western rail hub. But in terms of like each council at that point, we're not at that point yet. Yeah, but it's an alternative. Yeah.
Thanks, Jasmine. Yes, over here, question.
So you were talking about privatising. If that's not possible, how do we achieve the target of however number of things? Repeat the question.
Yeah, the question was around how can we achieve the targets that the candidates have set out with the EVs, that sort of thing, given that it's run by private companies and it's not in the hands of government.
Well, I mean, I think we should say it is possible to nationalise our public transport system. They do roll over the contracts, like that, but it is, but the Andrews government has reviewed the contract. They could have in his term of office said, okay, we're ending that and we're going to start running it directly ourselves. That is entirely possible. So that's the size. I think the fact that there's been an SEC announcement is also an example that the things that we think are not possible can be. You know, that we could have once again a publicly controlled, at least, energy company. Like that seemed like that was not on the cards anywhere, and all of a sudden out of nowhere we have a statement really from the government that privatisation doesn't work when you want to drive the transition to renewables. It is much more effective to have a direct intervention from, you know, political actors in that. So, you know, I guess there's also just policy that should be, you know, but they still do shape so much of, despite the privatisation of the network, it is still fundamentally shaped by government policy. So, I think that they can just make statements saying, by this stage, by, you know, 2025 say or whatever, that there can't be dirty diesel buses. That's banned. No longer we'll have to run our network on electric buses. It's what we're seeing in terms of, you know, what we're demanding about freight too, you know, that our dirty trucks have to get off the road. And there should just be policy that says they cannot no longer come into our cities, that you know, old trucks that spew matter into the atmosphere, just, you know, destroy our health. That's a government intervening into the private market, saying, you know, you think that, but that's what we're demanding, I guess.
Trung and then
yeah. It's contract. It will happen. It was prioritised. But the main is it's all business incentive. It's popular then that will. That's what we're committed $50 million. Lesson the community fund charging stations, implementing 600 stations plus the health state. that's encouragement, incentive for them to do it. So it will be cost efficient for them as well. So it will happen, and our partners basically through the contract will basically we'll have it done zero emissions by 2030. So it's basically there. So the incentives there for it to do it. All business cases, it makes the business case they will move over to EV. So it's not that they can't, you can.
Virginia?
Yeah, I agree that what Link said with the one unified bus service, it's got to be one. At the moment, there's several hundred contractors, and a lot of them are reaching the contract end as well. I think I was reading in one of the, what could have been Professor Stone's, that there's too many different players, and that, you know, those contracts are not meeting the demands and the needs. So we need to move across, and I believe in nationalising it. I seriously think that we shouldn't have gone to public-private tender to start with, but you know, you find these things out the hard way. But we can build the electric buses here in the West. Why not start the industry here? And but I honestly think that it needs to be a one bus system. And once it's been proven by the modelling overseas that once you build that bus system, you can make it faster, quicker, and build on top, you know, to make it more efficient. But if you don't build it, that you can't have all these different players at the same time.
Before we take another question, any other thoughts from the panelists?
To answer the question is legislation. I mean, we don't like, a lot of people don't like the idea that legislation can affect private business operations, but it can. So if transport isn't privatised by the next government, sorry, if the whole system isn't privatised, you can still introduce legislation that particular vehicles have to meet certain standards that would be electrified. They just have to want to do it.
That's all. I mean, we know how to do it. We have public services in public hands and run by public services before.
John, and then one more question with Sangeeta, and we'll finish there.
My question relates to the comments around political will. I think it's absolutely essential to get change, that there is political will. So with the sort of hard-earned knowledge of doing this stuff for a long time, action is the only way to encourage change in political will and growth in political will. Around the West, there are all sorts of depots where diesel buses sit, and they start up every morning at 6 o'clock, and they print their fumes across communities and various other things. I think my take on it, that's one element that needs taking on. But how do we get an organised campaign of community action together to start publicising the dilemmas we face with the existing system, old, antiquated, emission friendly, and start publicising what we actually want in the future? I think the community alliance is one part of it. The council's working together is another part of it. But the whole community needs to come together on a regular basis, you know, once or twice a year, to actually highlight some of these big major problems that are affecting our community life. And we need a vision. We need a vision for what the West might look like with a better integrated transport system. And Laura's found that, you know, the walking, biking, and all the elements of an integrated public transport system alongside land use, as Rose is saying. We're building whole lots of big communities, but no transport in them. So we've got a bit of a mess now, but it's looking like getting worse before it gets better. So for me, the action now, the community action, the protests, the publicising what's going wrong, as well as the visioning for what a right good system looks like, important hand in glove. So I'd like to hear from the candidates about their thoughts on how they might make that happen if they have to get to government.
I think it would have been great to have these meetings a few months ago and perhaps start a political kind of a united force in fighting and making transport a number like a top, you know, gold priority. But I also think visuals work really well. I think that video of people, everyday people in the West and their everyday experiences with public transport, I think showing a person with disabilities, trying to get to the pool, a person trying to do their shopping, a person whose car's broken down, realising that there's no public transport within sight. And also for the older people, I know my mum's got dementia, all mobility ceases. So that person's life becomes a case of complete dependence on, you know, other people, and that in itself is really hard. So I think putting a video together of real experiences of what we experience in the West every day in different parts of the West, and what we can have, what the ideal, what the vision is of what an integrated transport, world would look like in Brimbank in the West, and the ease of, mobility as compared to right now where you can get a bus to the pokies, but you can't get a bloody bus to, do some shopping, So I think that these are the inequities that speak to people. And I think we need to use those examples to speak to our leaders, because I think talking to us, they know we're the converted, but how do we convey what the everyday person with cost of living issues, trying to run a car, it's so expensive these days. How are they surviving out there? They need to be made aware of that.
Thanks, John. Thanks for the question, John. You're right, and your question mainly on EV and the vision and action so loud and word, and that's why we actually done it. We will pause our APIs will pause the electric vehicle tax, which we encourage people to invest in the electric vehicles and establish the 600 new charging stations, which encourage people to zero emission lessons as well. Now, not only that, we will after there's an announcement, we will legislate a target of 50% zero reduction, zero emission by 2030. We'll legislate it straight away. That's doing straight away. That's how we encourage people doing it. Actually, we're doing it. That's the announcement.
Any others before we move on?
Oh, sorry. The question was.
What are you going to do?
The question?
What can you do as candidates to raise the profile
of these issues? Right. Well, I mean, that's exactly what we're doing here. What the community is already doing. I don't think it's a matter of showing what the issues are, talking about them, and raising awareness of them, because everybody knows. Everybody who lives here knows. The politicians themselves are fully aware. I hate to bring it back to politics, but that's what it comes back to, because they literally are just safe in their seats, earning good money and not listening to the community, because they actually have no need to. So we need to scare the current politicians without naming parties and things like that. We need to scare them, make them feel like they're not safe. I don't like that that's the way it has to be. I wish that there were more genuine, committed, passionate people like there are here today who are doing it for the right reasons. But, there are politicians who just need a bit of a scare and a bump and remind them that if they're not going to listen out of genuinity about the issues, then we'll tell them that they're not safe.
Well, yeah, I think most people in the West want to see a better public transport system, also care about climate action. There's broad support for action on the climate, but for most people, I feel fairly disempowered that nothing changes. Politicians, are in it for themselves and or they're business mates, and then they don't have a lot of faith that political change will happen. So people switch off and think, I'm just going to try and get by as best as I possibly can, keep my job, pay my bills, care for my family, and part of the task of community campaigning is to raise people's expectations and hope that things can be different. And part of that is conversations and getting out there and talking to people. And I think that that's one of the strengths of Friends of the Earth approach of grassroots organising, that you're going to train stations, leafleting, talking to people. That's how, the campaign met other local residents who talked about their issues, then get some media that with some real authenticity to it. So I think continuing that kind of approach of having lots of conversations, and in particular, I think we should try a series of demonstrations as well, like of protests, some potentially in the city, but especially in the outer areas where there is such a lack of public transport. In whole states without even a bus connection, it's a crime. Like yeah, I think that would be good if we could focus our energy a little bit on some, concrete, like we're going out there to talk to people like you should be involved with us, go and leave with the train stations, letterbox around the area and so on, see what we can get.
Bernadette?
I think storytelling is probably one of the most powerful things that we do as a collective. The stories that I read, like when I read the stories of the ABC and the Age and listened to 3CR and other stories, not just the transport stories, I think they're the most powerful things. And when you take those stories to people who have the power to make this change tomorrow, if they wanted to, for me, that is one of the key things. So, if any of us ends up in Parliament, that'll be a great thing because we're committed to that change. But I think we've got to collect the stories and we've got to take them to people in Valley, because I'm not sure that they do actually know the day-to-day struggle of people and day-to-day challenges of what it's like to not catch your bus or to not have a bus or to not have a train or to not ride a bike or be on the books there. I don't think they really get it, to be honest. And I think collectively gathering those stories and taking them to them and continuing to take them to them until they get it, so that the switch and then.
Thanks, candidates. Sangeeta, I know that you had a question, but we are massively over time. So if you could turn it into a statement that can be said in 15 seconds.
So I think if you want to have a chat
we'll have,
afterwards.
yeah, we'll have time to mingle afterwards until 9 as well.
Not just in like so forth, but it's about how we take when we go to a bus stop, what can we do, how is it accessed, how is it planned, how is that time able to serve going from point A to point B. So I think the important everything that you do to take on board people's facility, because we really rely on those buses to get us around. So that's
Great. Thank you, Sangeeta. We might leave it there, Margaret. I'm very sorry. It sounds like you're going to do it. All right. And that's it. All right.
Not going to shame anyone because I didn't have to. There's a station right there, but I guarantee nearly all of us would have driven here. And I'd love for you to get on that spaghetti mat and see how long your journey would have been just to arrive today. Just have a voice.
That's great.
And
Thank
that's
you.
why they're not here.
Now, I'm going to hand it over to Rachel to talk to how we could follow up from tonight, and then we will call it a night.
So I will come and stand in front of you guys.
Stand in front of me, please.
And I can see the online people. I think I have to sit at home. Yeah. Hello. All right, last speaking gig of the night. So thanks for everyone sticking around. We did want to say a huge thank you to John for emceeing and the collective who put this event, the volunteers who were here, the community groups who shared it around, and the candidates and the council and everyone who helped make this event happen. Particular shout out to Elise, who, if you signed up, you'll be getting lots of emails from. Unfortunately at home in bed sick, so get better. We wanted to let you know about how you can come and get involved, because as you guys have said, it doesn't end here today. We have to keep building this campaign and keep building the pressure. So there are 3 things you guys can do. First of all, make sure you're following along. There'll be lots of more community voices and stories being shared over coming weeks. You can sign the petitions and join us. In fact, this weekend we're going to be bringing the noise as part of Friends of the Earth's kind of big moment in the lead up to the state election this weekend. Across Melbourne, we'll be sharing the campaign and the story and the action that people can be taking. That's the second thing you can do. And the third thing is as we know, there was an important party missing from this panel here today. And so make sure you jump online. Friends of the Earth's got a template where you can use to write a letter to your MP. We've got a public transport minister who is a local around here, so let's put the pressure onto him and make sure if he's not your candidate, if there's other, representatives and members, that you're also sending them the message that now's the time for better buses and better public transport for Melbourne's West. So thank you all for coming. Really appreciate the enthusiasm, and I certainly wish that there was a bus waiting for me out there when I could jump on and I could just, cruise home, scroll on TikTok and, send my messages for my friends about the great event here tonight. But instead, I imagine, like many of you, I will not be making that journey home, but hopefully next time we get to meet for a community forum, we can do that. So thank you again for all coming. If you do want to stick around, we do kind of have to set the room back up how it was before, which was not like this. So if you could move out into the foyer, but feel free to keep, chatting and asking your questions. I know the candidates will be willing to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.